Let me begin by saying that if this wasn't a good movie, I would not be here making this video for you because I was dangerously sleepy on the ride in, and yet, within minutes, I had to figure out what kind of gibberish Bryan Cranston was talking. I'm pretty sure it was just regular dialogue fed backwards into an audio thing. Power Rangers, directed by Dean Israelite and starring a group of teens with attitude that I've never heard of, so I'm just going to read them off to you. Dacre Montgomery. Dacre? Daceray? Dacre Montgomery plays Jason, the Red Ranger. Naomi Scott is Kimberly. R.J. Kyler is Billy. Ludi Lin is Zach. And Becky G is Trini. Those are some millennial-ass names there. So right off the bat, the movie had two scenes that kind of set the tone for you. The first one was like a flashback to 65 million years ago where Bryan Cranston was the Red Ranger. And it just shows you right there how gritty this movie is going to actually be. Because it's just like a regular Red Ranger, but just covered in dirt. And it's just saying to you right there, this is not your childhood Power Rangers movie. And then the second scene was after a few minutes of dicking around with a cow. It was all one take chase scene where the cops are following Jason in his truck. And it had like a 360 thing, kind of like the beginning of Moonlight. And I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is because I am getting better at spotting one take shots now. So it's not exactly praise for the movie so much as excitement that I'm actually learning something. So one thing about this movie that makes it more for me is that it didn't care about the plot. And with Power Rangers, you really can't care about the plot because it's fucking ridiculous. When you got shit like Goldar and Zords and million-year-old fighting units, it's a little bit too ridiculous to try to get too far into, so this movie focused mainly on the character growth of the Power Rangers. I mean, in fact, the movie was at least two-thirds just them training. They didn't even get the freaking suits until, like, almost the very end. So in that sense, it wasn't a traditional superhero movie, but it wasn't, like, a complete turn on its head the way Logan was or Deadpool. It was how they're expecting Spider-Man, I think, to come out, sort of a Breakfast Clubby type thing, especially how this movie had all the detention stuff. I don't think that this was a kids movie though. There was a lot of children in the audience. I was sitting next to like a 7 or 8-year-old kid, and just immediately they're doing jokes about jerking a cow off. So I don't think that this is the children's movie. This is aimed for people like me who watched the show when they were like 4 and then grew up. I mean, I know the show continued long after I was 4, but I wasn't actually all that into it, to be honest. I had a picture from when I was about 4 years old, dressed as the Blue Ranger. My sister was the Pink Ranger, because I guess I wasn't allowed to be the yellow one. I like the Sabretooth more than anything else. I actually really don't like Triceratopses. But I actually, looking back, if this Billy is as similar to the old Billy as it should be, I can see why I was the Blue Ranger, because I identify as, like, you know, the nerd character that he would. Billy was definitely my favorite one. He also was like the best character for the movie. He was definitely on the spectrum. He admitted that and was very clear about it, at least for in the beginning of the movie. He started to get more comfortable with people, and it kind of slid off towards the end. So, but that happens. But he was the one actually doing stuff. He blew some rocks up to find the stones. He discovered Zordon's little cave, and he worked out where the Zeo crystal actually was. So he was doing more stuff than anyone else in the movie. I mean, Jason was the leader, so his job was to make the speeches and to coordinate with Zordon. Kimberly was kind of the emotional core of it, in that she was the attractive force that got Jason really, like, invested, I think. I'm almost positive that his attraction to her is really what drew him into the rest of the group. Because, I mean, even when he was defending Billy in the beginning, he was aware that there were girls watching him. See, it was a real group of outcasts, real Breakfast Clubby type group, where Jason is the Emilio Estevez. He's the jock. He doesn't have that much problems. Like, his big problem is that he let his town down by being super good at baseball, but then pulling a prank on another team, getting caught, and being kicked off the team. So his outcastedness was very recent, and it really didn't affect his character up to that point. He had the confidence and everything that you would get growing up as a jock. A talented jock. Billy was a nerd. Kimberly was a disgraced cheerleader, very similar to Molly Ringwald. Her character flaw was that she was afraid, she's insecure that she's mean. She honestly thinks that she's a mean person because she did one extremely mean thing, but she's definitely too hard on herself for that. Zach, I didn't really like very much. He reminded me of a bunch of people I grew up with who just said they were crazy and expected that to mean that people are going to be afraid of them or something. Like, he does crazy, stupid shit to give himself an edge as a defense because he's afraid his mom is going to die literally at any time. And then my second favorite character after Billy was Trini, who was a lesbian, and I don't get how I heard so much about one minor-ass gay character in Beauty and the Beast, but I didn't hear nothing about Trini being gay until, I think, yesterday I heard Russia put an 18-plus ban on it. So that seems weird to me that both Disney and Power Rangers are huge things of my childhood, but one of them was just completely ignored when it came to the homophobia. I live in a homophobic area, so that you'd think they'd be brought up more. I'll go into the bigger names now. Bryan Cranston. What I was saying earlier about Bryan Cranston's ancient alien language pissing me off was he had like this little sentence in the gibberish, and then he followed it up by Rita. Like, no, not Rita, not anything that made it sound like that word was part of his language. It's like she had the name Rita Repulsa 65 million years ago, despite the name Rita or any humans named Rita ever existing yet. And Repulsa wouldn't make any sense because they don't have English. And then Dickbag Alpha, this part really pissed me off. Alpha 5 called English a primitive dialect. And I am very curious to know what his definition of a sophisticated dialect is, or, what would make English an entire language. Unless they're implying that Nostratic is real or something similar to that, and that all human languages are dialects of one older language that they know about, but we don't, despite him being trapped in it. I could literally go on forever. Basically, what I'm saying is if you insult a language, it's going to piss me off. Elizabeth Banks really surprised me because I've never seen her do anything like this. This was way out of her general range of acting. Her character was not the best. There was, for some reason, a part where she attacked Trini, who's just a Yellow Ranger, not the Blue Ranger who figured everything out, not even the Red Ranger who's actually in charge, but the random Yellow Ranger, who she knows where she lives, but doesn't know what a Krispy Kreme donut is. There's all these little minor things that don't add up if you pay attention to the plot, but like I said, it's ridiculous, so you just can't. You gotta let that go. Just focus on the characters. Probably my favorite thing about the movie is the fact that there was no set-in-stone romantic angle to it. In my opinion, there's two possible ships you can get out of the end of it. Jason and Kimberly and Trini and Kimberly. Personally, I find heterosexuals to be very boring, so I would rather it be Trini and Kimberly. But if it continues to not be either of them, I don't have a problem with that. Okay, and then at the end of the movie, for the final climactic thing where they actually had a battle, there was no action scenes leading up to this. There was training montages, but no real action. This was Rita Repulsa's first major entrance onto the stage. She'd kind of been set up as it went, but she had revealed herself to the Power Rangers and was fighting them at a docks. And so all throughout the third act, it's basically just all action. Everything leading up to that is just characters. I love how they brought back the old Power Rangers theme song, the Go Go Power Rangers. That was a very nice touch. Yeah, I like the climax because it wasn't like the entire world was in peril. They weren't shooting off sky beams. There wasn't just wave after wave. There was definitely wave after wave of faceless enemy soldiers, but that wasn't the focus of it. Once Goldar got there and was fucking some things up, the Zords were focused on him. Although I do think in the climax, Trini didn't actually do anything. And then two concerns about the Megazord, or the Zords in general. One, they said that the Zords were based on the most powerful animals at the time they were created, except for there's 65 million years of difference between saber-toothed cats and Triceratops, minimum. Yeah. They didn't try to explain that at all to me. Honestly, I would have just cut the explanation for why they looked the way they did out, and then just pretended like everything's normal. Just pretend like you belong. And then my other problem with the Megazord is that you can't actually tell which part is which. Like the Pteranodon on the back, yeah, that's pretty clear. I think Kimberly actually's got it pretty bad having the flying machine because she has to deal with all these extra dimensions that nobody else really has to worry about. But aside from the pteranodon on the back that turned into swords, there was no, like saber-toothed cat on the arm, triceratops leg, or however it was arranged, because I don't remember. That was 20, fuck, Jesus, however many years ago it was. So yeah, in conclusion, this movie blew my mind at how good it was. Dialogue was hilarious. The plot wasn't incredibly necessary to follow. Characters were fun. There were tons of shout-outs to the original franchise. Complete lack of romance. The fact that there were even stakes, like Billy dies in this movie for a little while. I mean, it didn't take me long to figure out how they were going to bring him back, but like there were kids in the audience who seriously were freaking out that the Blue Ranger was dead, and that made me kind of happy. And then when Goldar was fighting all the Zords like together, they lose that. They fall into the pit and then come back out as the Megazord. But in the moment, I forgot Megazord was even coming. I forgot it was a thing. I was like, they're losing. It felt good. So the stakes were there. And while the CGI and wire work of the movie wasn't that good, the costume designs were great. Rita Repulsa looked amazing. The Power Ranger suits looked amazing. Even Zordon, I didn't really care for in the trailers, looking as he was just the wall. But like in the theater, as it was working out, it worked. And finally, it looks like Rita Repulsa's blasting off again. Like, I mean, come on. I was back in the 90s for 2 hours. It was great. So anyway, I don't know if you noticed, there's a Mass Effect out, so I've got a Turing to fuck. That means I'm leaving.